Right now it is time to talk football. I'm delighted to say we're joined on the line by the Manchester City writer for The Athletic, Sam Lee. Good morning to you, Sam.
Good morning.
Interesting times to be a football writer at Manchester City at the minute.
I'm wondering how good a quality that my camera is. You could probably see a few wrinkles appearing around the eyes. not too much sleep and a lot of stress last few days, but all fun and games.
Yeah, the prospect of having Lionel Messi on our doorstep in a time zone that suits, in a game that we all watch with great regularity has got everybody very excited. So, some slight developments this morning in that it seems like the Barcelona president has decided that he would be willing to fall on his sword if it meant that Lionel Messi would stay in. So we have to wait and see whether this is just some sort of a ploy by him to double bluff Messi or in fact it's real. But if he is to go anywhere for a raft of different reasons, it seems like Manchester City is the most natural fit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's probably a good way of cutting through everything. There's all sorts of different things that could go into it and why he could or couldn't actually leave. But yeah, if he does manage it, then City are ready and waiting. Basically, they've wanted to get in a position to be ready to take him for, I don't know, more than 10 years now. Obviously, since the owners came in, I think the owners have always wanted Messi. They've always wanted Guardiola. They've always wanted Messi. It looked like, they got one of those. It looked like they got one of those. They last came close to getting Messi, I think, 4 years ago in 2016. It was pretty close, but I wouldn't say it's as close as it is now. And I remember back in February, there was more talk of Messi being unhappy. And I was kind of thinking, my own opinion, I was like, surely City wouldn't go for him now, 33 years old, surely financially not viable. But then managed to do a bit of digging around and found out that City was still then in February willing to get him this summer if he did want to leave. And this is the situation we're in now. They've always, because of their attempts to get him over the years, they've always been in good contact with his dad in particular, the people around him. They've got a good idea of what he needs. Financially, obviously, that's taken a bit of negotiation, I suppose, a bit of discussion in the last couple of weeks. But I mean, in terms of the sporting project that he always talks about, to be honest, quite often he speaks about leaving Barcelona, doesn't he? Because the sporting project isn't right. They've not got a team to win the Champions League. And look, you could be watching this and think, well, City haven't got a team to win the Champions League either, evidently. But I think Messi does see himself in that team with Guardiola and see that as, I don't know, a good bet for the last couple of years of his career if he does leave.
Yeah. Financially, just that you mentioned it, how does that all fit in? Because City are a club that walk that financial fair play line pretty finely, and there's some chat this morning about players like Gabriel Jesus and Bernardo Silva and some others that may make way here to make it fit. Is that just a very simple case that they offload a bunch of players to make way for him and make it work that way under FFP?
Yeah, it could well be. I mean, I appreciate this is getting less and less of an acceptable thing to say. But earlier in the week, when it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and this was all kicking off, I was able to say, look, I don't know how they're going to do it, but I know they're going to do it. If they get the opportunity, they will do it. Unfortunately, now it's like, okay, we need to actually know how they are going to do it. And yeah, those player sales, swap deals with Barcelona, I don't know, maybe they try and sell a player elsewhere. That will probably come into it. I mean, I'd been told a few weeks ago anyway, it was just before the FA Cup semi-final, so whenever that was, start of July, the City could spend up to 300 million this summer. I think that would always be offset by people going out, but that could be the headline outgoing figure. And now, obviously, with the Messi situation developing, it seems like those kind of figures fit. So I don't know if that's true, what I've heard, and I have no reason to disbelieve it, then there may well be more space in the budget there than is generally imagined now. The other side of it is, the player sales. But the other side of that is FFP's obviously been relaxed in a way that it doesn't allow clubs to do whatever they want. But basically the reporting period has been extended. So this summer and next summer, effectively the same. So there wouldn't be so much of a rush, I don't think. It would be a gamble on City's part. But I suppose, because obviously they're desperate to get Messi, and they always have been, and this is their chance, so they will do it. I suppose what they could do is commit the money, but then they would need to find a buyer for argument's sake, Gabriel Jesus or Bernardo Silva in the next 12 months and sell them next summer, because they do have that extra long reporting period to balance those books. I'm not sure how much they'll have to get off the books, wages wise, there's a lot of talk of all of City sponsors would be willing to pay more. Again, that's a normal part of football if you sign a superstar like that. But again, with it being Manchester City, I'm sure a lot of people will roll their eyes, or worse. It's a bit like the Juventus situation when they signed Ronaldo, and the Fiat workers went on strike because the holding company put money in to get Ronaldo. These kind of things are normal. There will be ways to get those wages done. In terms of getting the fee with Barcelona, again, the big question is how much would Barcelona want?
Sam, how far are Manchester City willing to push this before they actually get categorical confirmation that Messi is free to make the move? Because this could end up in court. It's all coming down to whether the contract, which stipulates that he was supposed to let Barca know by the 10th of June whether or not he wanted to stay for another year, holds up or not due to the pandemic and the elongated nature of the season. And there's a real Barca connection at the club with Pep and with Begiristain. I mean, are they willing to engage in these talks with Messi and his representatives, get the deal over the line, the terms and the conditions sorted, and then hope that they are eventually free and in a position to sign him?
Well, I think that's already happened. I think they have, well, I'm pretty certain they have had those conversations in the last couple of weeks. There's been meetings, like internal meetings at City, where they've kind of worked out the financial viability of it. They've worked out what they can and can't do. They've decided they are in a position to pursue this. And like I say, it was fine for me to say on Tuesday night when it was breaking that this is City's position. Obviously, now we need to see exactly how far they're going to go. But they are in that position. They are ready to do that. But yeah, you're right. Is he going to be able to leave on a free? Seems unlikely now. Like the consensus among like Spanish lawyers seems to be that he's been badly advised to send that burofax and think that he can leave on a free. But I do believe there's an element at City where they are willing to pay a reasonable amount, but then it comes down to what is that reasonable amount. And I know I've given a lot of long rambling answers, but there's also a school of thought in Barcelona that to me I would say, well, Bartomeu surely won't want to be the president that oversees Messi leaving. He won't want to take the blame for that. But there's definitely a school of thought in Barcelona, and it's not based on nothing, that if Bartomeu wants to consolidate his position, he effectively can't afford to leave and let somebody else come in and maybe look back over the last few years worth of, well, outgoings and incomings and all of that, and that he actually wants and needs Messi off the books to keep them going and make them more financially viable because of the situation they're in. So if they say, well, okay, we can get his wages off the books and we can get 150, 200 million euros, it sounds quite unlikely, but this is one of the schools of thought going around people who are close to the situation in Spain, closer than I am to the Barcelona end of things. But yeah, if you're asking about the point to which City will push it, if Barca say, well, we want the clause, or if Barca say we want 400 million, even City with all their desire and all their resources, I think they would have to say, look, we can't do that. But they are obviously confident to have got to this point. Messi's given them the encouragement that they need to pursue it. But yeah, to answer your question that you asked about 10 minutes ago now, sorry, it comes down to how much Barca are actually determined to get him out. And if Bartomeu does want to get him out, basically he's just trying to string them along. If he can get 200 million, I'm sure City would find a way to get as close to that as possible. If it's the clause, it's never going to happen. If they say it's 500 million, it's never going to happen. But City will take it as far as they can because they're not close to getting it, but they're not as close to getting Messi, but they're as close as they ever have been, basically.
Can we picture a hypothetical situation whereby Messi has signed, Sergio Aguero was fully fit and in perfect condition, having had all this time to get himself ready, and that Gabriel Jesus, in his mind, sees himself as the de facto number one when it comes to the centre forward at the club, and they're all there ready to go on the opening weekend of the new Premier League season? How do you see that dynamic working? Because Jesus has been very public in it, discussing how he's changed his game under Pep. He knew he had to work harder. He has to lead the defence. He has to lead the press. And then suddenly, both he and Aguero, obviously, are going to be utterly sidelined by this hype show that will arrive in the guise of a 33-year-old Leo Messi. And I'm just wondering, will the whole dynamic of this Manchester City squad that is based on hard work and individual player development, that'll just be thrown completely out of kilter?
I mean, I suppose it's possible that it would be thrown out of kilter. I mean, a lot of people have been asking, what about, and not even those players, but what about Mahrez, what about Bernardo Silva, what about Foden? And I do think any player would want to play with Messi. And I do think that, look, if he affects the element of hard work, the pressing, I mean, City had a problem with their pressing last season. In my opinion, that was a big reason why they didn't achieve their goals, and that was a reason why they conceded so many counter-attacks. But at the same time, there was a lot of games where they could have papered over those cracks. And I'm not saying this would make them a more stable team, but they might be better at papering over those cracks if they've got somebody in Messi who's going to score 50 goals a season, rather than Sterling and Jesus, who have done very well, but as we probably saw boiled down into one game in that Lyon game. If they'd have put those chances away, all the questions about City's tactics would have been forgotten about. And if they've got Messi, and because it's such a dream of the owners and the club are willing to make it happen, it might not make them a more stable team in terms of that pressing, in terms of everybody singing on the same hymn sheet. But I think on the balance of probabilities, if you put it all together, you've got all the negatives here, and you've got Messi here. I just think it's always worth having Messi. And I do think everything he would bring, unless he was a disaster, unless he didn't settle, unless he got an injury or something, it would be worth doing. And it's probably not the best, most sensible business decision City have ever made. It's probably a bit of a calculated risk. But if you're going to bet on anybody, it would be Messi. In terms of the balance of the squad, and you mentioned Gabriel Jesus, if they do sell a player to balance the books, obviously there's been reports about Jesus and Bernardo Silva. Jesus seems to be the one that makes more sense to me, because it's been 18 months now that I've been hearing that there have been times where they've considered selling him anyway to upgrade him, because they think he's a very good striker, but they need somebody who's a bit more clinical. And I don't think anything he did last season will have changed their minds. And obviously, if you've got an opportunity to get a good fee for him and upgrade, and the upgrade is Lionel Messi, then all that comes together. So it might not be the case that Jesus is in the team at the same time as Messi, or it might not be the case that he's there for longer than a year. If other players are going to be upset by Messi being there, look, some of them might miss out on game time, but City were planning to bring in a new forward anyway. The fact that it's Messi kind of suggests that it's really going to put noses out of joint. If they'd assigned somebody of a lesser profile, Lautaro Martinez, for example, João Felix, those guys probably would have been thinking, well, why aren't I playing? I know this guy's good, but why aren't I playing? But there might be an element to it of, well, it is Messi, and it's an honour. I know it sounds a bit fanboyish, but it would genuinely be an honour, surely, for any player to play with Messi for at least one season. And then next year they can go and take stock. Bernardo Silva can say, did I play enough? Am I happy? Is it worth it playing with Messi? If they want to go, then they can go. But I don't think it's going to be an issue, certainly for that first season, if it were to happen. I just think that the positives outweigh the negative 10 times over.
And he's been at Barcelona for the last 12 or 13 years, but there have been some bloody sizable egos there too over the last while, and he's managed to see most of them off. This might be a totally stupid point to make, Simon. Please feel free to shout it down if that be the case in your view. But if is there a possibility this ends up being a bad deal for Manchester City? Like, his influence and his character are pretty all-encompassing. We've been listening to it over the last week or so since all this sort of cropped up. Like, he's very intense, dominating. I mean, I don't want to say domineering, but it doesn't seem to be that far off it from everything you hear. That's worked at Barcelona because he was the mainstay, he was the top dog at the club, he was at the peak of his powers, maybe more importantly than all of that. And suddenly a lot of those things are not the case any longer.
Yeah, he is incredibly powerful. I think people would probably be surprised by the influence he's got at Barcelona and with Argentina as well. He is the main man. How that will translate at City, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe he would be the main man, and maybe, look, all the players, they're not just signing, it's not like City are just signing anyone for 120 million, which is like the going rate now. If Messi were to walk into the dressing room, I'm sure he would be given concessions. And look, there's not a lot of, not leadership, but there's not a lot of vocal leadership anyway, and he could be that focal point that they need. I mean, in terms of it being a bad deal, I'm going to say no straight off the bat, but I do know what you mean. I do certainly know what you mean. I do think there are potential downsides for sure. Like I say, it's probably not the most sensible, safe business decision City have ever made. They normally buy players 20 to 25 years old, as the chairman said the other day. Resale value, I guess. They normally get them for about £60 million, normally for a buyout clause. It's all very safe, and as much as you can guarantee a player settling in, they try to do that. With Messi, it is more of a risk, obviously, because maybe he'll upset the apple cart. Maybe, him being the heartbeat of the team would upset De Bruyne, who is the heartbeat of the team. How would they work together, as you've already asked before? How would it work with Aguero or Jesus being sidelined, or Bernardo Silva, or Phil Foden's progress? Where would he play? Would the pressing be as good? Look, there are loads of different reasons to think maybe it doesn't work. Financially, look, I'm sure City wouldn't jeopardise the financial health of the club going forward, but you could certainly speculate financially, is it a good decision for City? And look, I've just reeled off about 10 reasons there why you think it might not be the best idea. But like I said before, I just think it's worth it. And I think that, look, everything is very analysed now in football. And the way, we're very granular about football analysis in England and in Ireland as well when it comes to the Premier League clubs, and the way certainly the conversation is around City. This will be analysed every time he kicks a ball. And look, if he does sign and they win the Champions League next year, you're not going to have people celebrating for Man City. It's great. Oh, it's great. Messi's the best player ever playing in England, and an English team have won the Champions League. It's going to be Guardiola can't do it without Messi. Man City needed Messi to do it. Look at all this money they've spent with it. But look, at the end of the day, it's football. We should enjoy it. Nobody really talks about Fiat and Ronaldo and Juve anymore. It's just Ronaldo's at Juve. That's life. His personality is what it is. He's fit in there. And I just think it would be better to live in a world where Messi plays for, well, look, if it's Man City or not, you could say it's Man United or Liverpool or whoever. But it would be better to be in a world, I think, where this happens and we get to see how it works out. And I'm sure Manchester City are thinking that. Let's see how it goes. We're buying the best player in the world. There might be some downsides, but it's Lionel Messi. They're not chucking it all out the window for the next big thing, because the next big thing might not work out. With Messi, it's about as safe a bet as you can get in terms of the quality of that one player. So I do certainly know what you mean, but I'd say it's worth it, and I would love to see it.
You mentioned Pep there, Sam. There's a bit of pressure on him already in that, despite all the money they've spent, and no manager gets more backing really, bar one or two across Europe, they've still finished 18 points off the top of the Premier League standings, and they've gone out in pretty limp style in the Champions League as well against a side that should be beating 10 times out of 10. Does it heat the pressure on him further that he has now got this player that he has won all of his Champions League titles with as a manager, and that if it doesn't happen with Messi, then really question marks hang over Pep to the point where you would start to wonder whether he has a long-term future at the club at all?
Yeah, but at the same time, in terms of question marks about his long-term future at the club, unless they were a disaster this season, I don't think he'd be sacked anyway. I don't even think they would be willing to let him leave. Maybe he wouldn't agree a new contract. I'm sure the owners would give him a new one. But it's funny you say, if he doesn't win it with Messi, you start to think, start to think this, start to think that. But even if he does win it with Messi, people he's not going to get that global credit anyway. People always say he's only won it at Barca because of that. So he's in that sense, he's in a no-win situation. Yeah. And that goes back to the nub of the question, really. Does it pile more pressure on him? I guess it does. All us guys on the outside will be saying, to be fair, look, I'm not normally one of these guys to pile expectations on a team that I'm covering or not covering. But I was saying already before the real possibility of signing Messi came about, if City sign 4 or 5 players for 200 million or more, I would be expecting them to get another 100 points next season and do much better in the Champions League. And now with Messi, if they were to get Messi, then that pressure would unquestionably be there. Regardless of how good Liverpool were last season, you would be expecting City to do the lot with Messi and Guardiola. And in that sense, there will be pressure. But I'm sure from Guardiola's point of view, obviously he does feel that pressure going into games. He does, feel that fear to not lose control of the game. But I'm sure for him, it's a fantastic opportunity. And I genuinely, again, this may sound like I'm painting it in a different light, but if somebody offered you the Man City job, if somebody offered me it, I wouldn't be qualified to do it. But it's like, you're going to have Messi. You think, well, okay, there's a lot of pressure on me, but fuck it, I'll give it a go. And Guardiola is obviously very, very qualified to do it. And there might be pressure on the outside, but he's thinking, well, I needed a team. Well, you could say he's already got a team, and I would say he has got a team that he should get more out of, to be fair, in terms of last season's results. But if he's thinking, I need a team that I can get a tune out of, I need to keep the team fresh and go again for another 2 or 3 years, there's no better way of doing that than Messi. So there'd be pressure on the outside, but I'm sure he'd be, I suppose more pertinently, he'd be feeling rejuvenated. And a lot of City fans still want him to sign a new contract. A lot of City employees, the top employees, want him to sign a new contract. And the only way they were going to do that was to bring in players and show him that there's a long-term project for him to stay for more than 5 years. And the best way to do that is Messi. So I'm sure he'll be thinking, yeah, I've got a team. They're ready to go. Everybody's rejuvenated by Messi coming in. They might get Koulibaly as well. I don't know. They've got another couple of signings already. And yeah, I don't think he'll be feeling about the pressure. I think he'll be thinking about, how can I get Messi in this team, and how can I get Man City back to the top? And I think that's a challenge that will relish, rather than worry too much about the pressure. Although maybe if it comes to a Champions League quarter-final, he might be thinking, I really need to do this. But no, I think he'll relish it.
Yeah, I do think that point about everybody being reinvigorated by the arrival of Messi, including Guardiola, who the owners say this week that they expect everything to work out naturally as we wrap. Sam, is that your expectation that you've touched on it there, but that he re-signs now? He's got a year to run. He re-signs and is in it now for the long haul, Messi or not?
Well, Messi or not, no, I'm not sure. I don't know how they're going to handle it because obviously you probably remember when Pellegrini's last season, there was all the rumours about Pep, and Pellegrini signed that new contract at the start of the season. But look, I think everybody knows now that there was never any intention to see that through. It was just done to stop the speculation. And I do kind of wonder if they would get to the same stage if you take Messi out of the equation, where Guardiola would maybe sign a new contract this year. But I think he would only actually make that decision about whether he would honour it or whether he actually signs an extension midway through the season, depending on how the next few months go, depending on who they get in the transfer window, depending on how the season starts and the motivation of those players to go again. And I think if Guardiola looks at the squad and he thinks, I can't really get a tune out of them anymore. 5 years. Basically, I've taken them as far as I can, after 5 years. I think he would go. But if he looks and he looks around the dressing room and there are fresh faces and there's, fresh motivation and hunger, I think he would be like, well, okay, it's worth a go. And obviously, if you were to add Messi into that, I'd be amazed if he walked away after a year. If Messi signs a 2 or 3 year contract, I'd be amazed if he walks away after a year. But no, I don't think it's decided yet. I'm not expecting him to stay. I think it's to be decided depending on what happens in the next few months in terms of transfers and performances at the start of the season.
For what it's worth, I expect all this to wrap up by City being really close to signing Messi. He arrives in at Manchester Airport only to be met by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and he's swooped over across the city. Not as if it hasn't happened before. I know there's been some chat about it.
Seems to be how United do their transfers at the moment. So, yeah, it wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be a surprise.
Or perhaps Messi might do a Robinho on us, Sam, and arrive thinking he's signing for Manchester City and ends up accidentally signing for Manchester United.
Yeah, and he says, look, I didn't even know there was a Manchester United.
Sam, thanks a million.
Thanks a lot, guys.